As a kid growing up in the United States, I missed out on dozens of seasons of Kamen Rider that were airing across the world from me, and I had no idea they even existed. I've since grown up, gotten an internet connection, and become, let's say, a bit obsessed with Kamen Rider. However, I'm also obsessed with video games, and having grown up with the NES but no Kamen Rider, I became quite curious what our helmeted heroes were up to in the 8-bit era. Of course, since we weren't getting Kamen Rider on TV, we certainly weren't getting any video game adaptations localized either, so this is a topic I was only able to peer into thanks to the wonderful world of video game ROMs. Now, the Famicom, Japan's NES counterpart, wasn't where the earliest Kamen Rider game appeared. That distinction goes to the Fujitsu FM7, an early home computer, with a dungeon crawler simply titled Kamen Rider. However, 4 years later, we get our first Kamen Rider game arriving on the Famicom called Kamen Rider Club, and it pretty much is what you might expect it to be, a side-scrolling platformer. In the era of Super Mario Bros., that was probably the surest bet they could make, and it paid off for them. Kamen Rider Club seems to have been incredibly popular. I found an old copy of Famitsu, Japan's premier video game magazine, from April 9th, 1988, and in it, they list the top 30 best-selling games for the week. Kamen Rider Club sits at number 3, 2 weeks ago it was at number 2, and the text here explains that Kamen Rider Club has been in the top 5 for 4 weeks already. It also goes on to say that this popularity shows the true power of the heroes of justice. However, it's rare to see a hero of justice who defeats the enemy and then takes their money. Now, this game is interesting and we'll talk about it in a future video, but it's not the Famicom Kamen Rider game that I want to focus on today. No, our game for today didn't come out for another 5 years after this initial Famicom offering. That's right, this game released in 1993 on Famicom, which is a full 3 years after the launch of the Super Famicom. As far as I can tell, sales figures for this game aren't available online. Every issue of Famitsu from 1993 that I looked through didn't mention the game in the top 30 at all. You have to imagine it was an uphill battle to try and sell a game on the previous generation system at this point, especially such an unproven concept like this one. And what exactly is this strange game that I want to talk about today? Well, that's none other than Kamen Rider SD Granshocker No Yabou. This wonderful piece of software is sort of an RPG, presented as a digital board game with some really unique mechanics and battles. And as you could probably tell from the name, it's based on Kamen Rider SD, or Super Deformed. SD was a sub-brand for Kamen Rider that starred chibi versions of all the previous riders, now in cutesy anime form. Kamen Rider SD as a brand produced manga, and anime OVA, and several video games. Interestingly, Kamen Rider SD was produced during the decade-long gap between the end of Kamen Rider Black RX and the premiere of Kamen Rider Kuga. So Kamen Rider SD was kind of keeping the flame alive, keeping the Kamen Riders in the minds of the Japanese people. And let me just say, Kamen Rider SD slaps. The OVA is so much fun to watch. Seriously, I don't think you understand just how gleefully silly this show is. I mean, watch this. NANI?! See, it's great. Granshocker was developed by Angel, a company owned by Bandai. While researching for this video, I came across a, believe it or not, geocities.co.jp personal website created by a programmer that worked on the game. According to him, at least, it was a difficult job that he doesn't want to remember. He claims that the programmer ran away during development and calls it a shamble. So, let's learn all about it. First off, in Japanese, this game is basically impenetrable without a detailed guide. So the only way I'm actually able to play it right now and show it to you is due to an amazing fan translation of the game that's actually been out for less than a year. So a very special shout out to Black Paladin over on romhacking.net for all the hard work translating this game. All the footage you're seeing in English is thanks to them. The translated name of this game becomes Kamen Rider SD: The Ambitions of Granshocker, and that paints a pretty clear picture of where we find ourselves at the start of the game. The evil organization Granshocker is a big combination of lots of different rider villains over the years, and they've invaded all of Japan. The game map is a map of the 8 regions of Japan. Each region has been taken over, or is in danger of being taken over, by a general of Granshocker. Hokkaido in the north is experiencing a giant blizzard, and it's where you'll have to take down General Jark. South of that, we find Tohoku, a region experiencing new volcanic activity, likely caused by Granshocker and the boss of this region, Jumenki Golgos. Our next region is Kanto, where Shadow Moon is likely behind some strange activity at a power plant. Chubu is the region where the Rider Team ally Sky Rider has gone missing. In order to recover him, you'll have to defeat the region's boss, Apollo Geist. Just west of Chubu, we find the region of Kansai, where Granshocker is inflicting folks with a sleeping sickness, led by the boss Ambassador Hell. Next, we take a look at the region Chugoku, where a similar sickness is sweeping through the people due to the machinations of Ambassador Darkness. South from there is the Shikoku region, where the people are convinced they're Australian. General Shadow is the Granshocker representative here. And finally, our last region is Kyushu, where Dr. G has kidnapped a doctor and is forcing him to create a tsunami machine. Luckily, the Kamen Rider SD crew has brought a whole slew of riders to recover Japan, split into 3 rider teams. First, we have the Battle Riders, comprised of Kamen Rider Ichigo, Kamen Rider Zecross, and Kamen Rider Black RX. The battle team are best on paved roads and they struggle on sand. They're the team with the top achievable speed on their bikes as well. Our next team is the Wild Team. Kamen Rider Stronger, Kamen Rider number 2, and Kamen Rider Amazon. The Wild Team are masters of rough terrain, but they're awful at driving on paved roads. Our last trio is the Mechanic Team, which is Kamen Rider X, Kamen Rider V3, and Kamen Rider Super 1, and they're also here. It doesn't appear they have any special traits, and the game never recommends you play them as you complete certain areas, like it does with the Battle Team and the Wild Team. So I guess if you want, they're a team that you could play. Assisting the 3 rider teams back at base, we've got Riderman handling your level upgrades, and Director Tobe Tachibana giving you strategy tips for each region. Now that we've established our setting and our cast of characters, let's dive into the actual gameplay. After selecting a team to deploy and a region to deploy to, you're presented with a chibi rider standing on a board game grid designed to represent the region of Japan. First off, I think these boards all look great. Each region's board is a unique layout, and the little sprites they use to represent the shops and various attractions around the board are all really evocative. Even without text, you start to figure out what each thing does. The main option we're presented with here is spin. If you've played Mario Party, you know exactly what's going to happen here. We spin a wheel to get a random number of spaces that we're going to move this turn. If you land on a space with a symbol on it, an event happens. Some of these are good, like giving you some free coins, fueling up your bike, or repairing your bike, and others are bad, like reducing your power, popping one of your tires, or teleporting you to a random spot on the board. Actually, that one can also be good sometimes, too. If you land on an empty space, you trigger a battle. You're presented with 3 enemies, challenging you to a race. You can try to escape, but this isn't always successful. If you do initiate the battle, you're given the option of manually controlling your characters or having the battle run on auto. Battles are initially a little confounding. Your 3 Kamen Riders are placed on a straight track with the 3 enemies. The goal is to race from the far right of the screen to the far left. If your riders finish in the top 3, they gain experience points. If an enemy finishes in the top 3, your riders all take some damage. Battles are turn-based, so each turn you can choose to drive, attack, or use an item. Driving propels you forward towards the finish line, but at level 1, this is a tiny amount, and even the lowest enemies are able to be a bit faster than you typically. Attacking hits any enemy riders that are directly next to you, causing them to miss a turn. However, attacking is the only thing that you can do in a turn with that rider, and you don't move when attacking, so the rider who attacked effectively loses a turn as well. However, this can be helpful if you can use one of your riders to sort of hold back 2 enemy riders, sacrificing himself so you can have the number 1 and number 2 spots at the finish line with your other 2 riders. Strategies like that are really the only way to gain the initial few levels for each rider in each of the rider teams. It can be a real slog to get to the point where you could win a race on speed alone. Sometimes trucks will appear on the road, blocking certain lanes. If you collide with a truck, it's destroyed, but you miss a turn for the trouble. Sometimes this works in your favor as the trucks will be blocking the enemies, but it can also work against you as well. Battles can happen on different terrains, favoring either the battle team or the wild team. But despite the terrain, they always function exactly the same way. And folks, these battles are long. After gaining some levels, you eventually just start trying to escape from every battle, just so you can move around the board faster. After playing a few hours, I found myself using auto battle and taking a few minutes of phone time while the battle played out, completely ignored. At that point, all my riders were fast enough that they could mostly win, usually, on their own. So it's not a great sign when the game actively invites you to stop paying attention to it for long stretches. It's certainly not ideal for a battle system for a game that wants you to engage with it. And certainly not great for a battle system that you engage with a lot throughout the course of this game. You'll find yourself cheering for the event spaces to show up, even if they're bad ones. Now, you will encounter shops around the various game boards, and these shops do sell items, which have use both in and out of battle. There's fuel in both regular and large versions. If one of your riders runs out of fuel, they barely move during battles. The hand tool and repair kit both restore some power to your bikes, which basically serves as health. There's an item to fix a flat tire, and an emblem that instantly teleports you back to headquarters. After a bit of playing, I started stockpiling emblems to cut down on the need to backtrack and circle around the board extra times. Finally, we've got items to be used during battles. Turbo, which causes your speed to increase for the current battle. Jet, which instantly rockets you forward really far. Smokescreen, which lets you instantly escape from a battle. And Missile, which you can use to shoot your enemy riders, or any trucks that might be blocking your lanes. So the gameplay loop here is pretty simple, but also novel at the same time. You choose a rider team, you choose a region of Japan, and navigate around the board, getting into battles and gaining experience. After you gain a few levels, you head back to base to actually level up your riders, making them faster and tougher. Eventually, either by following a guide or stumbling around and visiting all the possible places on the map, you happen into the point A to point B to point C type storyline that's unique to each of the regions. It really boils down to just visiting a series of places in a specific order, and then you get to watch a few dialogue cutscenes. These stories, however, can actually be pretty funny, like the one where everyone is having a group delusion about being Australian. They're goofy in a good way, just like all of Kamen Rider SD. At the end of each region's storyline is a boss battle. Oddly, boss battles are a completely different battle type. Here, we're presented with a lap-based racetrack. You control a single rider at a time, but you have the ability to pit and swap, and you're racing against the boss and a few grunts. The goal is to either win the race by completing 3 laps first, or destroy all of your opponents. Aside from the visual differences, this mode introduces drafting. A rider sitting directly behind another rider that starts to move will be pulled along behind, giving some free movement. After each move, you draw a card with various good effects like power up, fuel up, but also the chance for bad effects like spinning out or missing your turn. If you land on a space with another rider, you initiate a short battle. These little sub-battles are pure button mash fests. There's no skill involved, just mash away. I don't know if the game was tuned poorly or if I'm just a godlike button masher, but I had no trouble winning all of these battles. So my race would often end earlier than 3 full laps because I had destroyed the entire enemy team. Even with that happening though, these boss battle races are long. There's a lot of strong concepts in here, and I love what they're going for. It just turns out to be incredibly tedious and boring in practice. And really, that's how I felt about the game as a whole. I've never wanted to like a bad game more than with this one. Clearly, it was designed by a team that really had some great ideas and who wanted to do something different than just another platformer Mario clone. Unfortunately, playing the game without a guide, especially, is an exercise in a maddening tedium where at best you have long stretches where you just don't play the game and you let the auto battler do its thing. This is the perfect example of one of those games you had as a kid that you played all the time, but you never understood how to get through the first level. I'm sure dozens of Japanese kids just drove their bikes around the maps and never managed to accomplish any of the level objectives. Ultimately, I really wish that all these interesting concepts in this game came together into a stronger, more compelling package that I actually want to spend time playing. Oh, and one more thing. I would be doing you all a disservice if I ended this review without showing you some more of the absolutely gorgeous art found in this game's awesome manual. Remember game manuals? They used to be rad. I think I'm just a sucker for this chibi SD art style, and the shading they've chosen is just pure nostalgia. It's great stuff, and translating pieces of this manual to understand how the game worked was one of my favorite parts of the whole experience.